Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Essential Skills for Humaning. I'm your host, Christina Eanes, and for today's episode, Stephanie Hubka has joined us to share her wisdom on cultivating kindness to build better days. Welcome, Stephanie.
It's good to see you, Chris. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, so can you share a little bit about your background for those viewers and listeners that haven't heard from you before? I know we've had you on the podcast several times. We host another podcast together. So share a little bit about your background.
And it always changes, right? We are always growing and adding new things. I guess the first place to start is I am the managing partner of Protos Learning. We are a boutique learning and talent development consulting organization. So a lot of time spent on learning strategy for various companies. We also do design and delivery work. So I get to spend my days creating and building and brainstorming and collaborating. It's really kind of the best of all of the different worlds that I'm part of. Beyond that, though, I think if I were to pick two words to describe who I am, one would certainly be storyteller. I have an absolute passion and love for storytelling of all forms. I do a lot of it through Protos, but really, I'm also the kind of person who I just want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody and tell stories and hear stories. And, you know, there's so much great stuff that comes from building connections with people and bonding over shared experiences. And the other word I would probably use would be traveler. I've traveled kind of around the world multiple times. And so that really has come to define a lot of my outlook as far as what it means to get to know people, to create bridges that connect people. It's just been, you know, kind of a really fun thing that I've had an opportunity to do. So that's, probably the high level, like the 35,000 foot view of who I am.
Well, and I'm hearing you probably use a lot of kindness throughout the day in all of these interactions.
I certainly do. Kindness,
so let's level set. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think you're right. Level setting is exactly where we should be. I think kindness is one of those concepts. It's one of those kind of innate human features, characteristics, you know, something that's really very much part of all of us. And you're right. As far as travel goes, huge part of my experience as far as meeting people, traveling and experiencing different cultures. I mean, I've certainly found that kindness plays a big role in just about everything.
Yeah. Well, so why do we need this in our daily lives for better days? Let's start there.
Well, there are a lot of reasons. Let's start perhaps with the space we won't spend as much time in, mostly because I am not a neuroscientist. I just find this to be very important. Believe it or not, there's a neurological and a physical change that happens when you bring kindness into your daily life. And when we talk about kindness, by the way, we're talking personal, we're talking professional, all aspects, all facets, whatever that happens to look like and feel like for you. So when we're thinking about kindness as far as the positive effect that it can have, physically, it actually can have a really positive effect because it will actually, it's one of those things that will actually remove stress from you. When you think about how challenging it can be to human on a given day, a lot of us face a number of different challenges. What people don't necessarily think about is that through kindness, you actually can make a lot of headroads as far as removing some of that stress. I'm actually going to take us back a little ways to one of the times where I think probably in my most recent memory that I started to really understand how very important kindness is for so many people. And this was especially toward the start of the pandemic. So this is a time where a lot of us felt ourselves very socially and physically isolated from people who we were typically used to seeing all the time. It was very new. It was very strange. It was not a spot we wanted to be in for very long. 2020 was a year that I had a physical goal in my life. I wanted to walk 10,000 steps every single day. Fortunately, walking was one of those socially distanced activities that was absolutely fine. When I would go out for walks, especially over the first couple of months, I didn't see a whole lot of people, but when I did, I was one of the people who would stop and yell hello and wave like a maniac because it was just so exciting to see another person. And generally, I was met with the same energy. I had a lot of neighbors whose names I never learned, waving like they were just, on top of the world to see another human being. And what that really
because they were.
Well, they were. I mean, it was so funny too, because for a lot of us, I mean, how many times do you walk by a stranger, or walk by even somebody who you casually know? You might nod hello or wave. For others, you might ignore them completely. But in these moments, we were like, this is the connection we've been craving.
Yeah.
So when you kind of fast forward a little bit and you start to think about what that means and what that looks like, kindness is really one of those spaces and one of those characteristics that got us through some very difficult times.
Yeah.
These were the moments where waving to your neighbor really meant something. It was the time where when you'd start a conference call with somebody and you'd say, how are you? There was more to that question. You expected and often got people who wouldn't just, it's not just, oh, I'm doing well today. How are you? Great. Let's get into what we're going to talk about. There was also a whole lot of, well, this is how I'm doing today, and I'm having a good day or a bad day, and this is what's going on behind the scenes. And we saw each other for who we are and for the good and the bad and the challenges that might happen to be part of, our daily existence. But it was the kindness that came from that. It was how we treated each other with kindness and how we prioritized each other, how we empathized with each other. That's really what made the difference. So when you're thinking about what kindness can do for you, it's that. It can remove the stress. It can help you to connect with people. It can make you feel like you're part of something. And at the same time, as you are doing that, you're getting these great benefits. The people that you are kind to are also getting these benefits. They're being seen, they're heard, they're valued. This is really that space where we have these opportunities to build, the kinds of bonds that are just so important in the environments that we happen to find ourselves in.
I love that. And this is like the perfect bridge from the last episode where we had guest Paul Zach talk about the neurochemical oxytocin.
Yes.
And how that's released when
that
we
is
connect
a big
with
part
others.
Of this. Yeah, and that's the neuroscience of this. There are a number of hormones that are released when you practice kindness. It is, dopamine and serotonin and, a number of different things. There's an actual, like I said, a physical reaction that people have, but also as far as the brain science is concerned, there's a lot going on, all of which contributes to you feeling good, just, generally feeling better about yourself and helping others feel better about themselves too.
Absolutely. So not only is it a part of your wellness, it's a part of others' wellness.
Absolutely.
And for those out there that are like, I don't have time to connect with people. I just want people to get their jobs done. At a minimum, authentic kindness and connection will also help people be that much more productive.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It tends to take the same amount of energy to be kind and unkind.
Yes.
People don't always think about that. And in fact, when you're thinking about why people aren't kind, and I will say, when you're talking about kindness, especially at work, certainly in your personal life, a lot of us probably think, well, yeah, we're all probably wired that way, right? And if we're not, we've been taught. If you go back to, any point in your childhood, that's one of the fundamentals that even our teachers were instilling in us. You've got to be nice to people. You've got to be kind, treat them well, share your crayons, that kind of thing. It's not that we forget that as we age. It's not that it becomes less important. But I think what happens is twofold. One is that we see these, more unkind, negative behaviors presented or modeled for us. We see that sometimes, it's our supervisors who are doing that, or it's people in a position of authority, role models. You see that, people are not always treating each other as well or as kindly as they could. And you think, well, if they're doing it, then perhaps kindness is out of fashion and I shouldn't be doing that at all. But I think the other component to that is when we get busy, we don't always take the space that we need to think about what kindness could or should look like in a given moment. And without taking these moments to think about what kindness can be, you miss some opportunities. And you may think, well, because I'm busy, I can just skip this step. Kindness is one of those steps you don't ever want to skip.
Yeah. Well, and there's something here about authentic kindness.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. And authentic kindness really is it really who you are. It's the kind of person that you want to be. And it's what it looks like for you to do that in your own way.
Mhm.
Kindness doesn't always look the same given the individual or the situation. It tends to always feel the same though. It tends to both make you feel better and also raise up the person who is the recipient of that kindness. So when you're thinking about what that looks like in practice, it could be some of you might even call them the little things that go on in the day, things that maybe you don't even know if anyone's going to notice. One of the barometers that I hear about, or even, I know that this could be kind of divisive for people, but when you're thinking about going to the supermarket, you go in, you get a cart, you do your grocery shopping, you come back out, you put your groceries in the car. What do you do with the cart afterwards? There are different schools of thought as to whether or not do you take the extra 30 seconds and put that cart away? Or do you take, maybe the shortcut and hide the cart or put it behind another car or something like that and think, well, it's someone else's problem? Really, when you're thinking about what the kind thing to do there is, most people tell you it's putting the cart where it's supposed to be. It's going to make someone else's day a little bit easier. It's going to make it, more available for the person who's supposed to go and collect that anyway. I give that as a very base level example of what it can mean when you're thinking about what authenticity looks like. Do you want to be the kind of person who puts the cart away? Do you want to be the kind of person who sees that somebody's having a rough day and asks, is there anything that you can do? Is there conversation that you can have with them that might make them feel a little bit better? Are you the kind of person who would send a gift or something like that? Or maybe the person who would just text someone and say, hey, I was thinking about you earlier today. Just want to let you know that you're thought of, or you're loved, or you're respected, whatever it might happen to look like for that relationship. Some of those examples might resonate more with you than others, but the idea is think about what that kindness coming from you looks like when it feels right for you, when it feels like something that you would do. And spend some time and space deciding how you can let people know that you care about them. And also, think a little bit about what that looks like both personally and professionally. A big trick is getting to know people and understanding how they want to receive kindness, because that's really where you can deepen some of those relationships and ensure that the kind of authentic kindness that you're presenting is the kindness that is going to be well received by the people that you're sharing it with.
Oh, wow. So much there. I love it. We can from small acts of, I never thought of, putting the grocery cart back, or the trolley for some folks.
That's right. That's right.
As an act of kindness. So that opens up so much. So we can do it on such a small level on, not leaving your cart in the middle of the aisle, paying attention to other people so that you're not in their way, to huge things that you can do for other people, like being that listening ear at 3 a.m. in the morning, through a crisis.
And that kindness is going to be different for everyone, because you may return the cart. You may also pick up the phone at 3 a.m, but it's going to depend on what people need from you. It's also going to depend on what you're able to offer to them. That's why it's so important to think about what kindness feels like and looks like for you. When it's authentic, not only is it easier for you to do, it's a lot easier for people to be able to receive that. It's going to be much more aligned to what their needs are.
Which also brings me to the point that I love, what is it? The golden rule is to do unto others as you want them to do unto you.
Absolutely.
Which I don't actually like as much as the platinum rule, do unto others as they wish to be done to them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when it comes to kindness, we're also talking about partnerships, right?
Yes.
It's not just what you want for someone. It's not just what reflects, what you want out of that relationship or that conversation. It's also, and perhaps much more focused on who is receiving that, what they are going to be looking for. Yes. A lot of times kindness sometimes, can come across as misplaced. Someone does something they think is going to be really well received and it's not. And that's often because there was a disconnect between what somebody would have appreciated and what someone wanted to offer. Usually kindness is going to be much more aligned to the recipient than the
Yes.
person who was giving it.
Yeah.
But the benefit is very mutual.
Yes. I love it. Now, before we dive deeper into this, we're going to take a short commercial break.
Transform your organization with Eanes Training. Our premier interpersonal skills training programs are tailored to enhance your organization's employees in communication, emotional intelligence, leadership, and more. We have a catalog of expert-led courses designed to meet the dynamic needs of today's workforce. With highly engaging in-person, hybrid, and remote sessions, we can help elevate your organization's performance and success. Learn more at eanestraining.com.
So welcome back. So let's, there's something here, and we had a conversation before we started today about scarcity mindset and abundance mindset.
Yes.
And I really think this plays into kindness. What are your thoughts on that?
I really agree with you. I think it absolutely does. And so, just to do a little bit of level setting, when you're thinking about the world around you, when you're thinking about the opportunities that you may have available to you, the resources that you may have, it can be very easy to move into something that feels protective to you. And that's where we're talking about scarcity. The idea that if you don't protect what you have and keep track of what you have, others may be able to get that from you, or you may lose something in the process. When we're talking about abundance, we're really talking about the idea that I have enough. I may have more than enough, or I have access to more than what I really need. And what that means is I have space for others to be part of this, to share. One space where I know, Chris, you and I talk a little bit about this is when it comes to professional relationships. And I think that this is true whether you work for an organization, whether you are a consultant and you're partnering with others. When you have an abundance mindset, what that really means is that you know that there is enough great work for you to be able to do, enough ways for you to make an impact, and plenty of opportunities for others to do the same. So when we're thinking about what does that look like for kindness, a lot of it looks like bringing people into the opportunities and the successes that you have, giving people a chance to enjoy some of that with you, giving people a chance to take some of that work or find a role for themselves that gives them space to grow and develop and really feel valued, like they're part of something. And I think that that space is another one that's so important to consider. When it comes to kindness, a lot of that is about inclusion. It's about making sure people feel as though they are seen for who they are, for what they offer, for what they want to be, and carving out the space to let them do that, to let them be that person, and to let others benefit from the fact that they are who they are, they have these great skills, and they are part of, an otherwise thriving team. So yeah, I think kindness really does come into that. When we have an abundance mindset, it makes kindness and inclusion significantly easier to the point that everyone has an opportunity to play the role that they'd like to play.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, well, and mindset, perspective, right? All of that is foundational to everything. How we see the world. What perception is reality.
Absolutely right.
I think that was from Star Wars.
I think that
Qui-Gon Jinn or something.
I do not think you're wrong. That's right.
But I can see as you were talking, a thought that popped up to my head is I remember a shift right in my mindset. There was one individual that I work with that it could just be nasty sometimes.
Sure.
And originally I was thinking, I had the perspective of, oh, how dare you, you're being so mean, and then I said, okay, what's a different way that I can look at this? What's a different perspective that I can take? And after it took a while, right? Did some reflective journaling on this.
Yep.
But it took a while. And then I realized that they were coming from a place of extreme scarcity mindset.
Oh,
of low confidence, she was going to get thrown under a bus, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then so I started interacting with her differently.
Yeah.
And it completely changed our relationship. And she didn't change anything. I changed, right? So we often, too, again, look at someone else they need to change. They need to not do that, or they need to. But we can actually change that relationship by looking at it differently and using kindness as a way to maybe improve situations for everyone, like we were talking about.
And I think what you just shared is so important to consider. When you had a difficult relationship where you were approaching somebody who perhaps was not approaching you with the kindness you would have liked to receive, rather than shut down, which so many of us have done, will do again. I don't want to suggest any of us can get to a level of perfection that's not attainable.
Yeah.
We're all going to have rough moments, and we're all going to encounter people who we really struggle to work well with.
Absolutely.
But when you encountered somebody who challenged you, your response to that was to pause. Your response to that was to take some space and think
not the initial response. It took a little bit.
That's fine. But
fine. Then I paused.
We do not always start where we want to end, right? This is growth for all of us. And kindness is especially a journey for many of us.
Yes.
But when you run into those difficult moments, one thing I recommend to people is to consider having a pause button. And I realize that's not a physical thing you can carry around. It's not like Saved by the Bell where Zach Morris can time things out and say, all right, we're going to have a quick sidebar over here. It's about carving out and protecting a little bit of space for yourself to process what's going on, to think about whether or not you are reacting or acting within your own values, within the things that make you feel best about you, the way that you want to be received when you're presenting yourself. It gives you a chance to challenge your assumptions. You know, are you looking at a situation and misunderstanding something about it? Is there anything in there that perhaps you need some more information on? Is it about having a conversation with somebody? You know, what is the best approach? But it really boils down to, are you saving enough space for yourself to consider why you are inclined perhaps not to react with kindness and what kindness could look like in that situation. Kindness won't look the same in every situation. We usually don't want it to look the same in every situation. So giving yourself that moment to think about what it really could look like, what would be, you know, kind of the best fit for the people you're working with. That's a wonderful way to approach those big challenges that you might encounter.
Wow. Yeah. Again, another thought popped into my head. Sometimes kindness is not biting that person's head off and choosing to walk away.
Sometimes it's walking away for a long time. You think about some of your most challenging relationships that you've had. There may be people in your life that you haven't been in touch with in a long time, or maybe don't intend to return to, because the kindest thing for you and them is to have that space.
Yes.
Taking time to think about it from that perspective is absolutely acceptable. You know, when we talk about kindness, there is that misconception that it's always going to be about building these great, wonderful, lasting connections. Sometimes when you're thinking about that concept of authentic kindness, it's going to look a little different. The world is messy, and so are we. Embracing that gives us a better opportunity to figure out how kindness fits in and what the best reflection of kindness is going to look like in any situation.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so not your final piece of advice, because we'll get to that.
Okay.
But is there anything else you want listeners or viewers to know about cultivating kindness to build better days?
You know, I think we've talked about so much, but I think if I were to reiterate anything, it would be taking those pause points, taking those moments, avoiding those initial quick reactions that so many of us are inclined to do. We want to do them. They feel right in the moment. It's later that we realize perhaps that wasn't our kindest moment. When you build space in for yourself, you protect the space that you need. That is where you're going to start to recognize what it looks like for you to act with kindness, to receive kindness, and to help to create a kinder environment, whether that is at work, in your personal life, or anywhere in between.
I love it. That reminds me of what was his name? He survived Auschwitz and became an amazing philosopher.
Are you talking about Eli Wiesel?
No. Vincent? No. Anyway, so the quote is, and I'm going to butcher it, it's something about something lies between stimulus and response.
Yes.
You know which quote I'm talking about?
I do. And I don't know who to attribute it to. And I don't know quite what it is. We should find that and toss that in the show notes somewhere. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have it in one of my PowerPoints. It's just eluding me right now. But so taking that pause between stimulus and response.
Absolutely.
It's very helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we get to your final piece of advice, let's do like a 60-second, 90-second commercial for anything you want listeners or viewers to know about.
Oh, we can do it a lot faster than that. So if you would like to get in touch, I would absolutely welcome that. In addition to finding me on platforms like LinkedIn, which is really the only social network I'm ever that involved with, protoslearning.com is my website. You can go there. And actually, if you visit stephaniehubka.com, first name, last name, you'll find plenty more about me, including the travel information that I've got out there. My husband and I have a really fun travel website that covers a lot of the places we've gone to. So if kindness for you looks like taking a vacation, we got lots of good articles and resources and things like that. But those are probably the places I would go first if you're looking to find me online. But I certainly welcome any kind of conversation or any opportunity to connect if you'd like to.
Awesome. Okay, final piece of advice.
So I am going to go to a quote for this one. It's a favorite of mine, and it is attributed to the Dalai Lama, and it is, "Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible." I love that one. And I will expand just a little bit to say it is not simply what we have been talking about today, and what we've talked about today has not been simple. It is not only about looking for ways that you can be kind to others. This is also about kindness to yourself. Take moments to eat off the good dishes, or perhaps you put your favorite perfume or cologne on when you're the only one home just because it makes you feel good. Take these moments of kindness and apply them toward yourself too. When you are kind to yourself, you are that much more likely to be kind to others.
Oh, I love it. Awesome parting advice. By the way, I do remember the name. It was Viktor Frankl.
Oh my gosh. And
I know.
And that's a name I know too. That is absolutely something that I should have remembered. It's a great quote. It really is.
We're human, right?
We are. That's why we're
farts.
here.
It's all
that's
good.
why we're here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. It has been a pleasure.
Oh, I enjoyed every moment of this. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills, and until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.